Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 301 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm talking all about the Marine Corps Memorial Marathon, the MCM as it's called, the Marine Corps Marathon. It's iconic, and I'm only going to use that word this one time. It has a rich history and lots of information about it this week. And stay tuned afterwards because I want to talk a little bit about my training and my running week. I said the word iconic. I brought that up because there's this travel videographer I like, except that he uses the word iconic way too many times. And I made up this drinking game if I drank alcohol, where every time he says iconic, drink. And by the end of his 20-minute videos, we're all drunk. But yeah, I'm not using that word anymore. All right, the Marine Corps Marathon is a very unique, incredible marathon that's more of an experience than most marathons. The race goes through some of the most beautiful parts of Washington, DC, passing some very famous landmarks. Runners pass through the square in the area of Washington, DC, known as the National Mall, where they pass through the memorials of the different presidents and the different wars, like the Vietnam War Memorial and that kind of thing. It starts and finishes in Arlington, Virginia, which is right across the Potomac River. It's a really nice course. It's fairly flat. There isn't a whole lot of elevation except for the bridges. So it's a really great race. It's nicknamed the People's Marathon. Now, history of the Marine Corps Marathon is quite interesting. General Michael P. Ryan signed paper from Colonel Jim Fowler starting the Marine Corps Reserve Marathon. That was in 1975, 200 years after the founding of the Marines. The first Marine Corps Marathon was held in 1976 with 1,175 participants, becoming the largest first-time marathon in the U.S. Susan Mallory crossed the finish line in 1976 and 1977 at the time of 1977, she crossed the finish line at the time of 2 hours, 54 minutes, and 4 seconds, becoming the first back-to-back winner. In 1978, the marathon was transferred from the Marine Reserves to the Marine Corps and was officially known as the Marine Corps Marathon. The year also introduced the Challenge Cup, a competition between the U.S. Marine Elite and the British Royal Navy Royal Marines. It's a race within a race. The Challenge Cup pits members of the U.S. Marines and the British Royal Navy Royal Marines and fosters a friendly international rivalry. That would be fun to watch. In 1987, completing his first ever marathon, Jeff Scuffins set the standing course record with a winning time of 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 1 second. In 1983, Bob Whelan, a medically discharged Army medic who lost both of his legs to an 82-millimeter mortar round in Vietnam, started his marathon ahead of the pack on Thursday. He completed the entire 26.2-mile course on his hands in 79 hours and 57 seconds. His last mile saw 100 Marines marching in cadence. That just makes me emotional. How incredibly brave and amazing is that? In 1990, Olga Markova, a sergeant in the Soviet Army from Leningrad, wins the Women's Open in 2 hours, 37 minutes, setting the female course record that still stands today. In 1998, the Armed Forces Marathon competition is introduced where military runners from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps flew in from around the world to compete. 2001, just 6 weeks after the September 11th terrorist attacks, the 26th Marine Corps Marathon was dedicated to the memory of those who lost their lives in the tragic events, the survivors and the selfless heroes who worked tirelessly to save lives. Participants showed their patriotism carrying flags throughout a course that ran as close as 50 yards from the damaged Pentagon. That must have been incredibly emotional. In 2006, for the first time ever, more than 20,000 participants crossed the finish line. In 2007, the Penguin Award is first presented at the Marine Corps Marathon. The award honors public affairs officer and runner, Marine Major Megan McClune, who was killed in action in Iraq in December 2006, only months after being selected race director of the Marine Corps Marathon Forward in October of that year. McClune presented a stuffed penguin named Paul, a character in one of her favorite books, to the final finisher of the Marine Corps Marathon Forward. Today, the Penguin Award tradition continues for the final Marine Corps Marathon finisher. In 2009, the 400th finisher crossed the finish line. In 2013, entries for the 38th Marine Corps Marathon sold out in a record 2 hours and 27 minutes. That's when they started registration in a lottery system for the following year. It's just more fair that way. In 2019, the inaugural Marine Corps Marathon 50K was the largest ultra marathon in the U.S., with nearly double the participants of the 2018 record. So it started in 2018, and I'll talk about the 50K in a bit. Now, in 2020, as we all know what happened in 2020, wasn't that long ago, it brought unexpected challenges with the novel coronavirus. But in true Marine Corps spirit, MCM improvised, adapted, and overcame. As the pandemic evolved, the organizers shifted the annual event to a virtual-only status, allowing runners around the world to participate anytime, anywhere. In addition to marking its 45th anniversary, that year's race commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Iwo Jima by featuring actual black sands collected at that site with the event medal. Commemorative medal also featured the film strip images of the flag raising on Iwo Jima along a ribbon. In 2022, the 47th Marine Corps Marathon welcomed the running community back to Arlington, Virginia, and the nation's capital for a live and in-person event for the first time since 2019. The event will go down in Marine Corps record books as Captain Kyle King is the first male U.S. Marine to win the Marine Corps Marathon in 21 years. His victory led the way for the men's all-Marine running team to take the Armed Forces Championship and the Challenge Cup in 2022, a trifecta accomplished for the first time in USMC history. 2023 challenged runners to overcome unseasonably warm and humid weather. Despite it all, Callum Neff crushed the MCM 50K course record by almost 10 minutes, blazing across the finish line in 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 57 seconds. My gosh, that's fast. The cutoff time for the marathon is 6 hours, so pretty standard for most marathons. There are gauntlets, as they're called, throughout the race that runners have to get through or they will be pulled from the course. Now, the 50K is all roads, and it has a very strict pace. You have to be very, very fast to do the 50K. Runners have to maintain a 12.5 minute per mile race through mile 12.25 and then 14 minutes per mile for the remainder of the distance. So you have to be pretty fast. I mean, that's not fast compared to professional runners, but I mean, it's pretty fast. You can't dawdle, let's just say. There's a limit of 30,000 runners and they come from all 50 states all around the world. Entry is, as I said, held by a lottery every year. Since it takes place in late October, and this year it takes place October 27th, the temperatures have varied from low 30s all the way up to the 80s. It can be clear or it can rain. I mean, it can have snow flurries or it can be blistering hot. It really, really just depends on the year. It can vary that much. One of the best parts about the race is that every runner who finishes receives their medal from a Marine who salutes them. How cool is that? That's super cool, I think. I would love that. That's one of the best parts of the race, I think. If I was going to run another road marathon, I'm not thinking about doing one, but if I was thinking about doing one, this would definitely be on my list. Let me tell you, I think that alone makes it worthwhile doing. There is support throughout the race, with lots of crowds lining the course. I did read a lot of finishers' reviews of the race, and here are some things to remember if you do decide to do the race. It's a good idea to bring a handheld bottle. Well, I always think it's a good idea to bring one. In a lot of road races, half marathons and up, I see runners not bringing anything, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should always bring a handheld. A lot of races won't let you bring a hydration vest anymore because of what happened in Boston. They just don't want you to bring anything bigger than a handheld. And a handheld is always good to bring anyway. So you have at least a little, bottle of water, and you have a couple, maybe a goo, a gel or something, just something to get you by if you need it. Maybe a couple electrolyte tabs, something to help you. You really need something to keep you by in case you need it. It's just always a good idea. And you really, especially if it's a race you have never done before and you don't know what race support is going to be like, you cannot trust a race to have everything in place. Even if it's a race that you've done before, it may be an off year. They may have changed hands. They may have changed strategies of how to support the race. You just don't know. And if you don't have anything with you, you're at their mercy. And I, for one, do not want to be at the mercy of a race. I want to have a backup strategy if necessary. And they were saying that it was a hot year. One racer was saying it was a hot year and there wasn't any water stations for like 4 miles. In trail running, we're used to that, so we're prepared. But in road running, that's quite a far ways, especially if it's warm. Have a handheld water bottle. Bring that with you at every road race, except for maybe a 5K or a 10K you can go without. But anything longer, you really, really need that handheld bottle to bring with you. Another thing that some runners were saying is that there were no corrals. Now, this is a bit of a problem for me. I hate chaotic race starts in a big race. I can't stand it. If there are corrals and they're not taken seriously, they let anybody into any corral, that bugs me. I would have a problem if they just let everybody start at once. So that would mean, to me, I would go all the way to the back, because that's just how I am. I don't like being trampled. I don't like people racing around me. That brings up my fear of big crowds. I don't like that at all. That makes me very paranoid. Like I said, that would be a big problem for me. That would make me not want to do the race. So not having corrals, keep that in mind if you're considering doing this race. And one other issue that some of the racers had is that they didn't like the lack of communication from the race producers until just a couple of weeks before the race. I like a lot of communication from races, especially big races. I like to, when I sign up for the race, I like to get an email right away saying, welcome to the race. Here's some things that you need to know. Here's some places. Do you need a hotel? Here's some things about your city you're going to, blah, 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 all that stuff. I want to know that there's a really, really good communication, that the race is really well organized, that it's well done. And you can tell that there's a little bit lack of that because the website for the Marine Corps Marathon is not that great. It's just not a good website. It's the opposite of California International Marathon, or CIM as it's called. CIM has amazing website and it's amazing communication. It's so well organized. It's just, if I if people ask me what marathon should they run, I always say sim because it's such a great marathon. It's so well organized, so well put together, and the people who do it just do such a terrific job. So I always point to that one. So the lack of corrals and the lack of decent communication are kind of minuses for me. So I don't know. I don't know if this is one that I would do. But you decide if that's something that's plus or minus for you. I think the history and just the bigness of this race and the importance of what it stands for is kind of cool. And the fact that you're running something almost bigger than just running itself, I think that means a lot to many people. And I think that's why they do it every year. But even with all that, even with the pluses and the minuses, it looks like a pretty cool race. So let me know if you've done it before. Email me with your experience and we can talk about it a little bit more on a future show. And you can email me at martharunstheworld@gmail.com. Okay, I'm going to talk about my running week. I was a little sore after my 50K a couple weeks ago. Just a little bit, not too bad, actually. I slept I didn't sleep well afterwards. The thing is that before a race and the night after a race, I never sleep well on either one of those days. I'm just too hyped up. Before and after, I would say the night after my race, I slept very well. I was a little sore for a couple days, but nothing out of the ordinary. And then the day after my race, I went out for a nice walk. I got 4-mile walk in. And then that Tuesday, I went out for a short run, I think 4 or 5 mile run. And it felt okay. But I would say the day after that, the Wednesday, I did some strength training and I started feeling a little tightness in my right hamstring. I said, oh no, what's going on? So I took it easy for a couple days. And by Friday, it felt okay. It was feeling better. And so I wasn't that concerned because I used my massage gun on it and I couldn't feel any pain at all. Anywhere on my hamstring, nothing hurt. So it wasn't like I injured it or anything, because if you injured it, you're going to feel it. It wasn't even tight. There was no tightness there at all. I said, what is going on? Why does this feel this way? I'm thinking it's my hip. Really? I think all my problems, maybe my new hip didn't like going that far. Whatever, hip. You're going to go farther than that. You're just going to have to put up with it. So Saturday I went out, both Saturday and Sunday, I went out and got a couple decent shortish, runs, walks in. My runs are running and walking intervals, really. So Saturday was more walking, and then I went out for a more decent run walk Sunday. I went 6 miles Sunday. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to just walk. I was thinking during my race, my 50K race, that is my future just going to be walking? Is that all I'm going to be able to do? Because I haven't felt really happy with my running in a long time, not since I've gotten back. My running just hasn't been very good. It's been meh. It hasn't been anything to be happy about. I mean, I've done it and it's been okay, but it hasn't been something joyful, something that I felt really, really good about. And I keep going with it, but I thought, so then Sunday I went out and I said, okay, here's the thing. Am I going to just walk from now on and just forget about running, or I'm going to really put my heart back into running and run? Well, interval runs anyway, run, walk, and really, really get it down so I can run, walk farther than 5 or 6 miles, which is really all I've been able to do. So I said, okay. And it was a beautiful day Sunday. It was that wonderful kind of fall day that we have here where it's chilly in the morning, it gets warm, but then it's still chilly towards the afternoon. And I love that kind of weather. It's like the last burst of summer meets fall. And we'll get a couple like this week, and then next week it'll be chilly and that warm weather will be gone. It's kind of cool. I kind of like that. So there are a lot of people out I went to Golgate Park, and there were a lot of people out running and walking, lots of runners. And it really inspired me to say, okay, I'm going to really put my heart into running and walking, doing intervals and doing them right so that I can do intervals for a longer period of time, so that I can continue with this and actually do intervals through a race. Not just a 5K, but through a 10K, through a half marathon, through a marathon, and farther, so that I can actually do real intervals. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not giving up on running yet. I'm not going to just be a walker. I will walk if I need to, but I'm going to really do this. So that was for me, my Sunday outing was very inspirational and gave me a lot of motivation to do this in the future. So I really enjoyed that a lot. And here is my song for the week. My song choices change over the seasons. As we get towards cooler weather, I start listening to more wintry type music, maybe darker music, maybe more introspective music. One of the composers that I like listening to is a Norwegian songwriter, pianist called Ola Yelo. He is quite good. He writes piano pieces, and they're beautiful. And this one piece I will have a link for is called North Country, and it's perfect for cold morning runs. It's beautiful, but all of his work is beautiful. It's really nice music, and I think you'll enjoy it. So I have that on the website. All right, so that is it for today, and thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate it very, very much. The website is martharunstheworld.com. My email is martharunstheworld@gmail.com. And until next week, let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.